What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 33 of Spoiler Alert. I'm ChanManV, and that's Ellohime, and that is the Eat My Diction blob again, because his cam is still not functioning properly. So don't eat us. Don't eat me.
Zoom and XSplit just don't like it. If I could hook to OBS, it would work, but OBS doesn't hook with Zoom, unfortunately.
It throws me off, man. I'm used to looking at faces, like, so I can see how like people are reacting to the things I'm saying.
I could get like a gif or something.
I gotta get some slushy in my mouth too.
No, it's Pop Rocks. I was eating Pop Rocks, and I was like, yeah, I turned on like a voice filter and just like put it next to the crackly next to the mic.
Oh my god! Wow.
For those of you who are on audio only, there's just a giant picture of Diction's face.
Just use this as the thumbnail for the iTunes podcast.
We should have totally used this when we were. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I can't ever tell if I'm like getting close to pushing his buttons with that face. Like I need to see the anger, and
you'll never know.
I'll never know. This is a scary episode. This is a very special, scary episode.
I'm just sad we didn't have this picture. We were doing Akira at the time.
Oh my god, yeah!
That would have been so appropriate. We should have all been blobs during that one, dude.
Yes,
that would have been awesome.
Yes. That's perfect. Chan, what have you been up to lately? Before the podcast, we were having this real political discussion.
Oh my god, we were talking,
and we've had to pull back from that. So now we don't know what to talk about. We can't go to the weather.
That's true. Not too much. Just doing the shows as always, and still just completely obsessed with Sumner's War. And I don't know why I am obsessed with it, but
I've lost interest in the last
I know a lot of people are same thing as you, man. They played like a week, 2 weeks, like they're crazy about it, and then they just stopped playing.
I went like a month and a half, dude. I got Nat 5s, man. I got Nat 5s.
You got Nat 5s. You got lucky, man. Crazy lucky.
I completed a whole calendar thing of like rewards. You've been here. You were here today. You were here tomorrow. You're here. Yeah, I did a whole thing, man.
Me too.
And some. But no, I don't know. It started when I realized that it started to feel like a chore, like something I had to like before I go to sleep tonight. I got to jump on there and like tackle the giants. Like that's when I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I haven't jumped on there in a bit.
Let's just put you this way, Elo. I got Veramos today.
You got Veramos today?
That's how much time I put into the damn game.
We're such a bunch of nerds.
I know.
I can't believe you got Veramos today.
Hold on, I gotta link you guys a picture of me checking my phone while I wait for you to shut up.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we'll pull back.
We'll pull back on.
Shout out to Summoner More.
That's right, man. Comes to us is like, oh man, free promotion. I didn't even pay for this. This is awesome.
This
don't talk about it unless we're sponsored. Fuck.
This episode of Spoiler Alert sponsored by. Oh man. So anything else new besides Summer?
Just trying to avoid those Game of Thrones freaking leaks, man. It's like impossible. And Twitch chat, I'm like turning you off too, so like in case anybody leaks it in there. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I don't know what to say about that. Maybe I've seen it, maybe I haven't. I can't really say that I definitely have or haven't.
Gee, I wonder.
Because I did see it or I didn't. So yeah. Anyways. Yeah, I whatever. I can't say anything about this. You're throwing me down these lanes of conversation that lead nowhere, Chan.
How about this? Ella, what have you been up to? What have you been up to?
Fucking nothing, man. Watching this fucked up movie that Diction gave us here, this Predestination. I didn't realize.
Oh my god!
I didn't realize that when we were given this movie that it was really just like it was a trap. It was a trap. It was like a time bomb. It's like, yeah, it's one of those like old school time bombs that come in like a big Santa present where you think it's going to be awesome. You're like, yay, awesome. And you open it up and you're just like, what the fuck am I involved in? Like, you feel like you're on a list now somewhere with the government just by watching the movie.
Right.
It's like on that level of like craziness. So I've just been trying to wrap my head around what the fuck I just watched when it comes to this movie.
Yeah, you know,
So,
when the concept of male and female organs in one body is a curveball, you know something is crazy here. It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not even the main focus of the movie. It's just a curveball.
okay, so for those of you who
of like 16 curveballs that follow.
That's right.
yeah. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, what we do here is we kind of like a book club. We take a movie or a show, a comic book, stuff like that, and we take a week and we review it. So this last week, Predestination was sort of our book, to follow the analogy. And so we watched it, and so we're going to talk about it today in its entirety. That means spoilers included. So we're just going to have a big, long discussion about Predestination. At the end of the show, we will reveal the next movie, show, whatever, what have you, that we're going to give you guys as homework so that you guys can come back next week and join us. So, Predestination was given to us lovingly by Diction.
We'll take callers too today, by the way, guys. Monkey Overlord's in the Discord channel. I just linked the Discord channel. So if you guys watched the Predestination, have some points you want to add to our discussion or questions or whatever, just hop in there. Monkey will get you set up, and then we'll pull you on.
Bonus points if you've read the short story it's based on too.
Oh, wow. Points. I guess I'm not surprised there's a short story.
It said that at the end, right? It said that at the end.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it's by Robert A. Heinlein, and it's called All You Zombies, published in 1959, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So this dude was fucking thinking big.
Yeah,
he was thinking big back in the day.
What kind of is it like a long? I know it's kind of weird.
No, it's a
long short story. It's like a because short story can be like sometimes it's like a couple paragraphs to.
It's like a few pages. It was published in the Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine, which was like they did a lot of Ray Bradbury short stories and stuff like that.
Okay, that's so. Have you read it, Diction?
I've read it. Yes, it's pretty much like it's mostly just the big sequence in the middle where they're talking at the bar, and she's telling her story. But then like towards the end, it gets to the whole like revelation that they're the same person, and that they gave birth to each other, essentially. That's the big spoiler. It's so hard to summarize this fucking movie, dude. It's so hard to summarize it.
You forgot the part where they had sex together, too.
No, hold on.
Yeah, they had sex with each other. Yeah.
Hold on. It's not hard to summarize this movie. What's hard is to summarize this movie without
the context of that.
No, hold on. Without it sounding like a hentai. Okay?
Kinda, yeah.
Without it sounding like a very weird Japanese hentai.
Movie itself is a fucking like a time travel science fiction like
made by a Japanese person.
A time travel fiction time looping self-sex birth-giving adventure of our lives.
So yeah. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not knowledgeable in this area, but what do you call it when you actually have sex with yourself? And it's not hermaphrodite. This is not like a hermaphrodite situation. This is like actually physically having sex with yourself.
I mean, that's the paradox, right? Like this, like the whole conceit of the movie is that
what do we call this?
This is a time travel paradox that is physically impossible. It has to be. But the short story in the movie they based it off of makes a very, very convincing argument for how it could happen. So I guess for the audience, so we're gonna spoil the shit out of this.
Okay, let's talk about
the movie. The movie is about a time traveling agent from the future who's being sent back in time with a device.
Sounds crazy.
In a violin case. In order to stop a huge terror attack on New York City in the 70s. In order to do that, apparently he has to go back a little bit further into the 60s and meet up with a certain person. And it's this woman who is now a man, and she tells him a story about how she was born a woman. She grew up and she tried to get into space, this space travel company,
Space Corps.
and she was Space Corps, and she was really smart, and she beat everyone out of it, but then she was disqualified. I forget exactly why that happened. Because she got into a fight. She got into a fight.
Yeah, but they really kicked her out because of the medical reasons.
Yeah, but they didn't tell her why. So eventually she goes to college. She meets a mysterious man. They fall in love. They have sex. He disappears. She has a baby. the baby disappears, and then during the birth, the doctor tells her that like her insides were damaged during the birth, and they couldn't, like, her ovaries and her vagina basically were destroyed. But fortunately, I guess, she was also born with 2 types of genitalia. She's a hermaphrodite. So they repaired it, and she now has to go through the process of becoming a man. And she doesn't have a choice. Like, this is like her destiny.
Either she dies or she becomes
This is
a man.
real, guys. People listening for the first time. This is real.
And so she goes through it, and it's honestly like one of the best parts of the movie. Her acting in that, like, when she's trying to change her voice, you know?
Yeah.
And she starts crying. Like, that movie, that part choked me up. I was like, holy fuck, this is real. And so she becomes a man. She becomes a writer, writing about her experiences. And then she meets, flash forward to when she's meeting this dude at the bar as a bartender who's the agent. And then she finishes her story, and he's like, come down to the basement. I've got to show you something. Takes her back in time. Yeah, he takes her back in time to the college where she was going, and then he meets herself, and he was the fucking mysterious dude that impregnates her. So she impregnated herself with the baby.
Yeah, you left off the part in the very, very beginning, like when she first tells the story to the bar dude, that she arrived at the doorstep of of an orphanage.
Oh yes,
so,
I forgot. Yeah,
it starts with her being a baby and then growing up, and there's the growing up part isn't that important, but definitely she starts as a baby, she has a baby that's stolen, and then you eventually realize that, oh shit, she's the baby. I mean, that baby. Yeah,
and that's the end of the second act, by the way. That's not even the last twist. Like, this movie just keeps going after that, just fucking with your head. And I don't know. I feel like we shouldn't even spoil the rest of the twist, because it's like too much. My brain's already kind of
just basically if you gotta compartmentalize it, basically it's this: a person with the ability to be both man and female live a life. In the female version of their life, all right, they switch to a man and have a baby, but they have a baby with himself with the male version that comes back in time. All right, that's it. That's the whole
dreams,
thing,
dude. This is
what
dreams
Ethan
are
Hawke
made of
is
right
everyone
here.
in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
So
Ethan Hawke is every
basically,
character.
the baby is the girl that grows up into the person that has herself from the future her. And there's a zebra, and there's a lion.
There's no bestiality in this movie. Okay, that's the one
I
thing.
told
that's
you guys it's impossible to fucking summarize. Like, you have to just watch the movie. It's like, it breaks it down perfectly in the movie. Like, by the end of it, you're like scratching your head, but you want, like, they put it forward towards you, and you understand the sequence of events essentially.
Okay, so I mean, and he, all those things happen that Diction was talking about. But then you have this element that's kind of like the Matrix too, where it's supposed to be this cycle that just continues on and on.
What do you say? Ouroboros, the snake that's eating its own tail.
Yeah, the snake that's eating its own tail.
That's the summary of the film. Like, he even says it outright in one of the scenes. Like, it's just an endless cycle. Like, he's never gonna stop living this life. Essentially, he will forever be trapped in this fucking cycle.
It's interesting, because I want people that are listening to this that haven't seen the movie, that are going, what the fuck? This sounds way too complicated. It is complicated, but one of the best things I like about the film is that it gives it to you in spoonfuls that are small enough that it's not overwhelming. I think this movie has incredible pacing, where you have all these different things that you guys are getting thrown at you, right? So you're getting thrown at you that, the female becomes a male, and you get thrown at you that she had a baby. Then you're thrown at that the baby was stolen. All these things that are getting thrown at you. It's a lot to take in. I agree, but it's not, when it's presented to you. I think one of the best things I like about this is that it's done in such a way that it's not hard to follow, and it's a little disorienting. Like, it's disorienting in the way that this movie is disorienting within itself. Like, how people move around, and how, people are time traveling, and it's a loop, and all that predestination, all that shit. But it's super cool, because I've lost my train of thought now, and I'm done.
Well, so, I think what you're maybe
you get what I'm saying, though, right? You get what
I'm saying. Yeah. The reason it works so well pacing wise is because you don't realize it. Like, I didn't realize it until I've watched it like 5 times at this point. But it was like the second time around, I realized at the end, the entire film is from her perspective, including the parts with Ethan Hawke. Like you never leave that perspective, so you're given the information as they get it, essentially. Even when you're watching, him, and he knows what's going to happen, he knows what the future is going to be. You still get to the part at the end in the washer place where it's like, oh fuck, you realize that who the Fizzle Bomber is, and like you're still getting the information as they're getting it in the proper context, essentially.
Right. But that's the thing about the movie that's great too, and it's like alluding to what you were talking about with just the flow and things, is that when the movie first starts, it really sets this frame, and it really puts you in a place where you're in a position where you're familiar with like a movie where you have this kind of interesting discussion, and it's like a usual suspects type of situation.
Honestly,
right?
I was like really the first time I saw it, I was like thrown off by how like it went from like this fucking really cool like fucking retro sci-fi time travel, and then for like a large chunk it's just two people talking in a bar with
I mean, the beginning is totally about the Fizzle Bomber, which is like this terrorist guy that's blowing up shit, and there's a guy out there, right? And then you have this very mysterious conversation between a stranger at a bar and a bartender. So it sets up to be something where we've seen it, like that person could be the Fizzle Bomber, right? And so you're listening to this story from the guy at the guy is telling a story about him previously being a girl, and you're just waiting for the development of a criminal, essentially, right? And then so you're going down this roller, so you're very deeply involved, and you're totally in this frame. So you're trying to even guess moves based on this type of frame. And what you realize later is it's like completely off. And that's kind of why it's like it feels like a roller coaster that you can't anticipate any of the moves, because that's exactly what happens. Like the moment they go to the basement, it's like all of a sudden another movie. Like, it's just like
another conversation.
Like what is this?
But then they bring you back to the moment you saw before, and it's like, oh shit! Like we're still in the same movie, the same story. Just now we have completely separate context for what we believe, and it's honestly like a big testament to fucking Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook, because their performances fucking sell the whole thing. Like her portrayal of herself as a fucking man and a woman are both, they feel like different characters, but they're also sharing the same past, like they bring that with them. And I thought that was like the thing that like, it wasn't so much the sci-fi that like really drew me in. It was their performances. And that's pretty good. Like Gattaca, like the sci-fi is cool, but the acting is what really sells it. And this movie definitely has like really fucking solid performances to sell you this really bizarre ass story.
She looks like Leonardo DiCaprio there. Look at that.
He kind of does. Yeah.
Wait, it's not Leonardo DiCaprio? Who was I watching? No, I'm joking. It's interesting because there's so little about it that I don't like, and it's really hard, especially since it's a time travel movie. Like Purple Star is asking how I like it compared to other time travel movies. Well, I like it just fine, which is very rare, because the center thing that usually makes me upset about time travel movies was the central conflict of this movie, the paradox, right? And it did it in such a way where it's not even saying that this is a paradox, because it could just be saying that it's dementia, right? Because it's always referencing back that he took too many jumps, and it could all be like in his mind. There's always that option. So there's that backup logically for me, logically, there's that backup. And then the other one is that they're dealing with the paradox itself, which is always my problem with time travel, because anytime you have time travel, you have paradox, unless it's done like really well in a certain way. And
good time travel movies are aware of their paradoxes. Like they like this thing, like there are a lot of theories of how space-time works and stuff, but one of the biggest like facts that's been proven is you can't travel back in time. It can't happen. It just physically cannot happen. But it's fun to explore that. It's totally fun to explore like what might happen if that were possible. And so the biggest strength of the movie is the fact that you can tell the directors were very aware that like, okay, this is bullshit. This could never happen. But wouldn't it be fucking cool if it did? Like
it is definitely like somebody got super high and just went down a mind trip of like, what's the craziest fucked up thing that they could come up with, like in the context of time travel. Like with in relation to people and tackling social issues at the same time. It's like this is
so
like
part of me
in that nice little realm. It's like this is about as crazy as you can get, you know. I guess the thing is that time travel for me was always just such a crutch in a lot of things that you watch, right? Like, oh, we need something to be explained. Oh, let's just go into time travel. But then whenever time travel is used, you can always go, well, why didn't he just go back here? Why didn't he just go back there?
Yeah, there's so many. The Star Trek reboot was like, how are we going to solve the whole thing where they don't look anything like the fucking original Star Trek crew in the 60s? Oh, time travel or something. And then they can go on adventures.
It's like, it just
I still like Star Trek. I still like that movie, but it's it's seriously like a fucking means to an end and not an actual like developed plot thread.
Yeah, it's just whenever I just dislike it for so many reasons, because I just feel like whenever it's implemented, it's always lazy writing. Like it's never interesting, right? But in some very, very small cases, I do enjoy it, and because this one is dealing with that paradox, that's why I enjoy it. So that I'm totally fine with it, and I thought this movie was awesome. I thought this movie was incredible. In fact, I was surprised that I hadn't heard about it. And I didn't look up like how successful it was at release, but I mean,
it went under the radar. It was like a limited release type thing.
Yeah,
that's which is weird. I feel like it's such a strong movie. I feel like it is.
And the director's previous movie, Daybreakers, was like a pretty big hit back when it came out. That was the vampire one with Ethan Hawke, where vampires are the biggest population on Earth in the future, but they're running out of humans to feast on, so they have like basically blood that's got like fructose sugar in it and shit, you know. And it's really good, and I remember seeing it in theaters and shit. And this is their like third movie, but it just like did not get released like fully, which is stupid because it's really fucking solid. But it's at the same time, like the reason we're talking about is because it's so bizarre. It probably wouldn't have fucking. It's gonna be a cult classic.
It'll be a cult.
It was kind of destined. Yeah. It's destined. It's predestined to be a cult classic.
I think just having sex with yourself is too much for the majority of moviegoers to really grasp onto and enjoy. I think a lot of people would be.
I thought everybody's performance was like really, really, really solid. The only thing that bothers me, and this might be a nitpicky thing to you guys or like to other people, but I don't know. It's something that bothers me is whenever I'm being told that somebody is athletic, but they don't appear to be athletic at all. And it bothers me really bad in movies because I feel like part of the acting is getting across to the person watching that you have an athletic jaunt, that you have athleticism in your movements and stuff like that. And anytime you see her doing anything physical, it never looks right. It never looks like this girl, whether she's in male or female version, is ever going to kick anybody's ass. Like, it never looks that way. And that bothers me. That's the only thing that bothers me about the acting in this movie. Everything else was superb. But this one thing just always bothers me. And in fight scenes, if you're one of those people that's like, I'm okay with the kung fu style of choreographed fight scenes. I get that because that's a very much a movie thing, but it's hard for me to buy realism when I don't see a more realistic.
In what scene in particular? Are you talking about like
fight scenes when she's punching people?
Yes, when in that one scene where they're just like, they're doing like a very kung fu choreographed kind of thing. It's very strange. And it just looks weird to me. It looks weird. So that's the only thing that I didn't buy about the acting, was that this woman or girl or man, this character Jane, like she was athletic at all, or that she was some kind of like brawler, like I never got that from her. But as far as like acting chops and having that kind of roll back and forth, I think she did excellent. I think she did a phenomenal job portraying both the male and female. But that was the one thing that bothered me. That's the only thing that bothered me. And also, if you get a skin graft on your face like that, like your whole face is like skin graft like that, can you still grow a beard or like grow hair on your face?
I mean, well, we're talking.
No, I'm just curious. This is. I saw it and I was.
You could put follicles in. I mean,
yeah, you get unless the actual follicles themselves are damaged, you can still grow hair.
I mean, you could probably seed follicles too. I mean, these days I feel like there's you probably have the capability of taking grafting like your head, right? Just some
also,
like,
he was
skin on top
repaired
of
in the
your head.
future. Like they know how to go. They know how to travel through time. I'm sure they can fucking put beard hair in them.
That's
only Ella would think about a beard.
I know, right?
Well, no, I was just curious about it. But if you want to take the sci-fi angle of it, of course, I know that. I was just asking purely out of curiosity in our age, just because it happened in there.
I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, I know. I just thought somebody might know. I don't know, man. People
I would guess you
things.
could if you graft just a portion of like your scalp, and that's what they do generally, right?
Fucking Michael Keaton had hair plugs for like a decade, and then he realized it was stupid and took them out.
Okay.
There you go.
I remember that. I remember that in the 90s. Like, for some reason, that was like the hot news. Like, Michael Keaton not getting enough acting jobs. Also, hair plugs. Correlation? Question mark?
Come on.
So let me ask you guys a question. Does that ever bother you guys too? Am I alone on this one? Where like
the athletic part?
Yeah.
It bothers me too. Yeah,
kinda, but I don't know. Like, they kind of like the flashback where she beats the shit out of that girl in the orphanage kind of like solidified. Like, okay, she can throw a punch.
No, but even then, she doesn't like the punch that girl throws is like her wrists are all weird, and she like even in her picture or depiction, her artwork of her punching, her wrist is like fucking bent, like it's all like out and it's all wrong. Like literally, if you watch it, I was like, wow, she even draws herself punching wrong. Like I said that to myself like jokingly, but like it really happened. Like the little girl did not throw a technically like that would not hurt most people or kids. Like if she threw that punch.
Yeah,
it's weird.
For me, it's like I do. It does annoy me sometimes, but for me, it's like they had to pick an actor. Like I'd much rather take, if they had to pick between her and some more athletic person, like Ronda Rousey or something, of course I'm going to take her because her acting's so much better, right? For everything else in the movie. So for me, I think it's more of a compromising type of thing. There aren't a lot of great actors that are super athletic. That's why they have to go and hire UFC fighters and things like that, at a lot of times to make them look that way. But it didn't bother me that much in this particular movie. Like, I had a very, very quick thought about that. Like, oh, she didn't look that good of a fighter, but it wasn't as big of a part. Like, she didn't have to do all these crazy things outside of that one fight with Ethan Hawke, right? Really, really quickly, right? And by that time, she looked, when she was a guy, she looked in better shape. You know what I mean? She looked, more svelte, and she looked like she could move better too. So, it didn't bother. I didn't really think of it after that.
Yeah, man. Sometimes with movies like this, I get like, well, it's I call it like the Ninja Turtle syndrome. Like,
what?
It's this weird thing that I made up about like in my own head about like something like when I see it as an idea trying to be created and how crazy of an idea it is and what it actually might have took that person to take an idea like they had and then make this movie or make this artwork or whatever. So like in relation to Ninja Turtle syndrome, I call it that because like when I think about Ninja Turtles and how somebody might have pitched the Ninja Turtles to somebody, I think like, how did this ever become anything? Like, how did this ever become a kids show? Like if some guy went to you and you're running a kids station, right? And he's like, okay, so I've got this great idea. There's these 4 turtles, but then they get ooze on top of them and they turn into Ninja Turtles. They're human-sized turtles. Like they have a rat for a master. They fight a guy named Shredder. And this human woman that's a reporter loves them and they love pizza and they say cowabunga. And then like what guy was like sold? Like, yeah, that's the thing I want. Like, that's the, like, that's the show I want. Like, how does something like, and so I think about this in relation to other ideas like this one, like whoever created this, like, how do you go to somebody and go, all right, I want to make a movie and here's what it's about. Like it's a time traveling, violin case wielding, double male female person that impregnates itself and gets in a time loop paradox. Like how does this happen? Like how does this become? It's interesting because it's just so fucking crazy. Like it's crazy. Like how does this become a fucking movie? Like he was like, yes.
Well, nowadays,
sorry, a little bit of a tangent.
I mean, nowadays,
I want to know who's making these decisions, man.
It's hard to come up with unique scripts and movies these days, especially ones that have some type of just some type of loop at the end, right? Or just some kind of surprise ending. So I'm not that surprised that this could be, just I guess studio houses or whatever would be receptive to things like that. If it was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this wouldn't have become a movie, and that's why like that short story being written so long ago. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for the guy because that guy could be like really rich now if he was. I feel like
they had that.
They
had like the Inception energy behind them because Inception was such a fucking high concept, big budget, but also big lucrative deal that like a movie like this was not that hard to sell after that movie came out. Like hard to sell to audiences maybe, but like to a studio, like a smaller studio, it seems. I think this is like Lionsgate or something, and they're pretty reckless with like their spending. They do a lot of projects that are out off the wall,
Yeah.
Oh, Purple saying in the chat to give them a little bit of prop for trying to do something original. No, I am not knocking them for this at all. I'm just simply curious. This is simply from a curiosity state that I ask, like, how does this even become? Not because it's like, how does this become a thing because it's so horrible? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, how does this become what it is just because it's such a phenomenally in-depth idea that you have to pitch to somebody? Like we tried to explain the movie to you guys. How would that person try to explain their movie to somebody that they want to fund their movie? Like that's pretty incredible. But
they might have already had Ethan Hawke on board for it, and that's like a pretty big selling point. Like Ethan Hawke wants to star in this, and they're like, okay, well, right there. He's like he doesn't want a lot of money. Like he's cool. He's like Ethan Hawke's weird about that. Like for The Purge, apparently he took so little money that he didn't have a trailer because it was so low budget. He slept on the couch in the house they were filming in. Not even kidding. That entire like 3 weeks they were shooting, he was sleeping on the couch. But he like brokered a deal where he would get a percentage of box office sales, and that movie fucking blew the hell up. So So he might have done the same thing with this movie. Like, sure, I'll take a smaller paycheck if I get percentage of the if I get like executive producer.
I mean, that's just smart more so than it is.
Oh yeah, it's hella smart.
Like for artists or a little bit more for the art type of thing. So I have a question for you guys. What do you like time travel type of movies where you're able to interact with yourself versus the time travel type of movies where you disappear and you're just, like if you interact with yourself in a different timeline, you just like are destroyed or you
like
just
Marty
disappear.
McFly.
Yeah, Marty, exactly.
Those ones are a little bit, I don't know. I like the interacting with yourself. Like Primer is one of my favorite time travel movies, and that whole concept is about them making too many doubles of themselves walking around the world. They have to start killing them off to maintain the timeline.
That was a good movie too, man.
Primer is fucking rad. But so I dig that. But yeah, like the whole like, oh god, he's interacting with himself in the past. He's starting to disappear. I'm like, okay, come on, dude. Like, come on.
But like for me,
I mean, but at the end of the day, it's all theory. So I guess it's
it
is logical as anything else.
I guess
not as interesting to me.
I guess at the end of the day, it's an interesting question because the answer is like no. Like the answer is no, like just across the board no for me. But if I had to pick one, I would rather the one where like the consequences of going back has changed the future so much that this person may no longer exist or that timeline could no longer exist. I would rather have that because it makes more sense to me in my fucked up head than you running into yourself and meeting yourself, because that's where like all the paradox starts to come in, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, but if it's in a world where the consequences of your actions change things, like the Marty McFly thing, like people disappear, that I can accept and I can at least digest mentally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But Red K Win makes a good point in the chat. This movie, the point of this movie is that they have to meet each other.
Right. I mean that's what's unique about it.
They have to interact, but they have to do it at the exact right time and the exact right circumstances. Because if she meets herself when she's still a woman, like then everything's fucked, and she might disappear. Actually, if you think about it. So this movie does have that concept. If they didn't meet under those particular circumstances, she wouldn't exist at all. None of that would have happened. Like that.
I guess my thing is like, where does it start? Where does it start? Like, where does it start? That's what I want to know. Where does it start? Where does it start? I need to know, where does it start?
You're
Oh yeah,
never
Time
gonna
Crimes is another good one. That's one we should watch.
Time Crimes, yeah.
Time Crimes is really cool. That's an interesting concept of time travel where the dude's not quite interacting with himself, but he's like realizing that he has created events in the past that he noticed, and he has to redo them in order for those events to transpire for him to go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to describe that movie. It's fucking crazy.
Anything
basically,
yeah.
That was a really good one to watch. Though Time Crimes is really fucking interesting.
Let me ask a question to you guys. Let me propose a situation. Let me propose one situation, and all right. Let me propose one situation, and then when you guys answer that, I'll propose a follow-up situation. Okay. So, situation number 1. If you ran into yourself in time travel, okay, and you ran into a female version or an opposite sex or opposite gender person of yourself, would you want to date yourself, and would you fuck yourself?
No,
right?
No,
and
absolutely no.
No, right? No.
Yeah,
and I don't know how many people out there would be like, yes. And that's why I'm posing this question not only to YouTube, but also to chat and whoever's listening on iTunes or whatever. I pose this question. If there was another you time travel, just like the situation, ran to the opposite sex of yourself, would you want to, because I just can't.
Well, I mean,
some people are like 100% I would fuck me, but would you really
in the movie they kind of like set it up.
They did a good job.
Never had a relationship, and she believes that there's no one else on earth like her. You know,
right?
Like when she was a girl, she was like, I don't really relate to people. Like I just kind of keep to myself and stuff like that. And then when she goes back and she realizes that she is the dude that she finally fell in love with, I think it's both a realization that she's like, oh, I mean, this is kind of weird, but I do love myself, I guess. Like,
I mean,
if you think herself, but at the same time, she realizes like if this doesn't happen, she doesn't exist. Like she has to realize that at that point. Like,
I mean, theoretically, right?
I feel like I would get along with me. Obviously, I feel like we would get
oh my God.
friends. But I don't think that if I saw a female version of myself that I would be attracted to that and I would want to have sex with a female me.
Yeah, but
I don't feel like I make a good looking female. But that's what I'm asking. I'm talking like your opposite mirror image, whatever you think in your mind that looks like. I don't see that ever being attractive for me.
But you're not
as a woman.
You're not in that same frame. Like, here's the thing. Like, I would never do it. Like, it's no to all those things. But I can totally see it being possible for. But
what about the moral implications of like tricking yourself? Because that person, she's not falling in love with the person though. She's falling in love with like herself, and the only reason she knows all these answers is because she is herself. And she's like manipulating herself in a way to fall in love with herself. She's got all the answers. She's got the textbook.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But
that's a lot of steps down ego.
But it's the same type of concept as somebody, like we've seen in movies where people fall in love with AIs. AIs are completely programmed to say exactly what they want and things like that. In this particular case, it's even deeper than that because you know yourself the best. You know what I mean? And theoretically, a lot of people are attracted to people that know them, and have that type of relationship. And if you're somebody that's never been with somebody or never connected with anybody, I can totally see that being a possibility for somebody.
But here's I guess my follow-up question. Well, I guess this wasn't technically, but if God, this fucking movie, man. It's like I'm trying to get all these thoughts right. You're gonna have to come back to me because I just lost it again. God damn it, man! It's like on the fringe of my mind, and I want to
think about it. You're the only one that knows what you like sexually.
Yeah.
This is what I was gonna say. About being a sociopath.
You'd be the perfect partner.
Do you feel like somebody that could only fall into this loophole would have to be somebody that's insanely narcissistic, or even a sociopath? Like because of those tendencies, because she thinks she's superior, because she thinks that, she's better than everybody else, it leads her to have sex with herself. Or do you think that anybody running into themselves in whatever time travel would want to fuck themselves? I feel like the reason she's in this loophole has to do with the type of person she is. Like at a very base level, she's a narcissist. She's a sociopath, right? And because of these things, it allows her to have sex with herself, allows her
Yeah.
to have the baby, allows all these things to transpire.
She does have like a holier than thou attitude when she's a girl. Like she thinks she's better than everyone at Space Corps. You know,
correct.
Like,
And that never changes.
She's like, I'm the only candidate. Duh. Like I'm fucking smart as shit. Fuck you.
Yeah, you see it all throughout the film. So I guess where I was going was, you know, what does it take to fuck yourself?
Yeah.
That's what I was getting to.
I think
Balls.
I think that it's like two extremes. I think you can be on the extreme, which is the narcissistic side, you know, and you're sociopath, or it could be in the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where you're, you know, completely self-conscious, have no confidence in yourself, and you know, you're on that end of the spectrum too. And I could see that happening to that person too, because then they're generally isolated and not understood and vulnerable. Yeah, exactly. So I thought she was a little bit of both of those things, because it was weird because they portrayed her as this narcissistic person, you know, in terms of being confident about how smart she was and qualified for Space Corps and things. But you know, most of the movie, I felt the opposite. I felt like she was just somebody that was lost, you know, given that she had this kind of gender issue, you know, conflict and issue that she was going through, and didn't know who she was exactly. So she was a person that was super unsure of herself also.
Yeah, it's just so weird because that's the only lover she ever had.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, and she even said in the film that she thought about sex often, like that, you know, she had it on her mind. So she was open to meeting people, but she says herself, like anyone she ever met was just like a dick and whatever until she met herself. And once she met herself, then she was like, he was the nicest, he was the best, he was blah, 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 blah. Because again, he had all the answers to the textbook. He knew exactly how vulnerable that she was, how he knew exactly how vulnerable he was when he was she. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it becomes this kind of like weird thing where like innocently, on one realm, it's like innocently she's falling for herself and she doesn't even know it. But ultimately is. And the other side of the coin is, you know the state of mind that you're in, you know how lonely and vulnerable you are, yet you still take advantage of the situation to have sex with yourself because you fall in love with yourself. Like I saw the love coming from one side, like the younger version to the older person, that was love. But like the older person to the younger person, I had a hard time following the motivation there because it seemed like they were just kind of baffled by the situation, not so much that they were in love with themselves. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, she wasn't. I mean, she didn't know that was herself. You know what I mean? So
like,
it's.
But no. As the younger version, yes. But as the older version,
as the older
he
version
knows that. Yes.
Yeah, and
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
and it's a little bit more of a. In most cases, it would be like more of a parental type of, you know, situation, right? And this one, it's beyond that, that's kind of why it's so compelling. But yeah, I know what you mean by that. But still, just because the younger versions has no idea, I think that's why it's able to even go there. You know what I mean? Because if the older version would never have even put themselves in a position to even like kiss that person, like I don't think, you know, it's more of just like this non-romantic love for that younger version of myself. But then because of the younger version, you know, falling in love with you, or the older version, that's when it gets put into that situation, and then, you know, the older version really has to analyze like whether, you know, this is really what she wants, the older version wants, and that's where it's like, wow, okay, this is super interesting at that point.
I just have a hard time with the motivation of the older version in the love part of it. You know, like that's the only thing.
She's still lonely. I mean, there's nothing that's changed in terms of whether she's connected with anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter if she.
So you think it's like pure loneliness at that point? Because she is pretty fucking down at that point, you know, to go back and be throwing all this fantastical shit, you know. I guess that makes sense. It just seems so weird. Like I'm thinking in my head, like, what would it take for me to fuck myself? So, like in that situation, like I would never do it. Like I don't think I'd ever want to have sex with myself and eat. I mean, maybe if I knew what was on the line, like if I wasn't going to be born unless I did, you know, like I would then, just out of necessity to exist. But other than that, like I wouldn't want to have sex with myself. So it takes a special person to want to have sex with yourself in a time.
Okay, because Ello's gotten me into this, like diving into this crazy frame of thinking. I'm going to ask the tough question. I'm asking the tough question right now. All right, here we go. Okay. Let's compare masturbating with yourself and having sex in that fashion with yourself with actually having sex with yourself when it's physical and two physical entities. So what is the difference there? Emotionally and physically.
Okay, first of all, one of them could disrupt some sort of time loop continuum thing. Okay, masturbation doesn't present.
Forget the paradox part.
Hold on. You can't ignore the paradox.
Oh, come
on.
on.
The paradoxical part of this. Hold on a second. I'm just saying, masturbation in and of itself does not open you up to paradoxical time loops. Okay, fucking yourself in other time dimensions just pose that problem. So first con. To fucking yourself, it could potentially open up all
more
sorts
emotionally.
Of
okay,
emotionally. I mean, and especially in the context of the movie, it's different because masturbation to me is just completely a physical thing. It's not an emotional thing, you know. But it seemed like between those two characters that it was more of an emotional thing than a physical thing. So, like, the thing is, for me, the separation there is emotional and physical. When I masturbate, it's a physical thing. I do it for physical pleasure, just for me, and I'm happy with what I did, and I go about the rest of my day or fall asleep most of the time. But if I'm having sex with another person, it's a great way to fall asleep. But if I'm having sex with another person, whether it's on my timeline or any other timeline, I am now involving another entity, another soul, another person, and there are emotions involved, right? Emotionally, there's a whole nother spectrum there that we have to explore. So if there's a difference there, it's
well. Do you think there are people that have this kind of emotional sensation too whenever they're masturbating?
I don't. That's it. Now you're getting into the crazy shit. Are there people that masturbate out there based on emotion? Like, I know that you've seen like stuff like Jarhead, where like the soldier he like cry masturbates, you know, like he's in pain, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I think there's a handful of men out there that, you know, have masturbated looking at ex-girlfriend pictures, crying to themselves. It's happened, okay? So those kind of masturbations do exist.
But that's different. That's
all I can think of, though. That's all I can.
Totally different. I'm talking. That's like envisioning something else and like another person and masturbating. I'm talking about actually having the experience of pleasuring yourself as an emotional experience.
I think maybe the first couple of times, like the first time you orgasm, maybe like the first time you masturbate or the first couple of times, it's something new and it's emotional. I think maybe then, you know, during like puberty and all that stuff, everything's kind of tied up all in a crazy fucking bundle. So yes, maybe, but I think after your fifth or sixth wank, you pretty much get the game and you understand what's going on.
Well, here's the thing.
It's like I'm not like touching myself, going like, oh, I feel it. Oh man, I'm so one with myself. I mean, I guess there's like people out there that like meditate and then masturbate and they feel like it one with nature and themselves and shit. Maybe it's emotional. But I don't know, man. I don't know anybody else's masturbating habits besides me and Cora. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on, man. Tell me, chat. Tell me, listeners.
Oh my God.
Leave a comment on the YouTube video. Tell me. If you're listening to this podcast, have you ever been emotionally moved by your masturbation? This is the greatest conversation ever.
No, the reason I asked that is just because, you know, there are certain people that, you know, they never, you know, get married or find that partner, or they never even want to find somebody. You know what I mean? And there are definitely
asexual people.
Yeah, or asexual. Yeah, asexual. Cool. Yeah, asexual people, or I think there may be some asexual people that just haven't ever found somebody that ever meets those whatever standards those are. And you know, I think it could go even beyond that point where it's like it's only them, you know, it's like it's only them that can satisfy themselves. And I think they probably have a much different type of experience masturbating than we do. And I wonder if it would be in any way parallel to this type of, you know, situation where you would run into yourself, you know, physically. Like it's just like a physical manifestation of yourself, right? So
well, I think there's definitely people out there that are loners, right? Like people that like don't want to have sex, aren't interested in sex, or have had sex once or twice, right, where, you know, something happened or they just didn't like it or whatever, and just, you know, went about their lives and lived by themselves and died by themselves. Like people out there exist like that. There's, you know, cat ladies exist, all right? They're out there. You know, so yes, but do those people, when they masturbate, do they get some sort of emotional need fulfilled? I wonder. That's crazy.
It's crazy, and I would never have thought about that Until watching this movie and today. Oh man.
Thanks, Predestination.
Yeah.
Here, let me take us down another avenue of conversation.
Okay.
Entirely. Here's a question I want to pose to you guys and to the chat and the people listening. Is this film original?
Oh. I mean, there's parts of it that are. Yeah, I mean,
if we're considering that it was based on a short story from 60 years ago,
right, yeah,
probably. I doubt someone wrote anything even remotely close to this, but before then,
like, because this thing, I mean, the concepts that it has for the most part don't, like, individually don't have much originality to them, but when you throw them all together into the pot, I think it does create an original situation. At least it's interesting because you don't run into many original things, right? At the end of the day, you can break this down, you know, like we talk about it, the hero's journey, you know, the elements, man versus nature, man, you know, that kind of thing. You can break everything down, right, to its base elements. I mean, but as technology becomes more and more prevalent, and we start to see what technology can do or maybe do, our minds are expanding into different realms of reality and what's possible, right? So you get things like Black Mirror, you get stuff like this, you know, like things that actually end up being pretty original. But does that go against the thought then that everything's just a repeat in different ways? Or is this actually an original piece of work?
I mean, I think this is clearly original. Like, what other movie do we know of where you have, I mean, not only do you have like like yourself with yourself, but you just even having a baby with yourself.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it.
There's no
movie or read anything remotely like this. Like lots of fucking time travel, you know, fiction details, like what would be like to interact with yourself in the past or the future. But this movie takes it like several steps forward. It's like, okay, well, what if all these elements came together and you were able to fucking make a baby with yourself, and yourself is the baby?
I mean, there's some elements of the movie, like the build up. There are a lot of things that we've seen before, you know. So to your point, yes, there are definitely elements that they reused, you know, just to build up suspense or whatever. But the payoff is way different than anything we've seen. And I still think overall the end result is something that's original.
It's just such a weird thought to think that this is original or could be original when the thought process is typically that nothing is original, you know, like that's the basis of, you know, pretty much all literature and storytelling. Is anything you do is just going to be a repeat of something else or a different form of something else. But then you get something like this. But then you get this.
It's hard.
It's like,
it's hard to come up with something these days. So, you know, that's why it's, you know, applaud them. Obviously this was like 2 years ago, but still, I mean, it's still amazing. 2 years ago. If this came out today, it would have been original. So it might have even been more popular today. Who knows?
I feel like, it came out at like maybe the wrong time. Like, but still, I mean, I still feel like if it doesn't already, it's going to have a cult status for sure, which is like sometimes could be even more powerful than just like a big box office return. Like look at Pacific Rim. That movie bombed at the box office, but then word of mouth and DVD sales gave it a new life.
Did it bomb? Really? I thought it did decent at box office.
The return was not great. It didn't bomb per se, but it definitely didn't make its money back in the weeks it was open in the theaters. But then after the fact, people were talking about it. It got a cult status because people like robots fighting giant monsters. That's just a cool concept.
That's wrong.
So eventually it made its money back, and now they're making a sequel.
It's really interesting for me to categorize movies like this or to suggest movies like this to people, because I feel like you have to be in a certain mindset or a certain mood to watch it. Like this, like for instance, like people will ask me like, what are your favorite movies? Give me like your top 10 favorite movies, and I'll, you know, throw out like Fight Club or whatever. But like, I never say Memento. You know, like if you've ever seen Memento, it's a great film, but it's this like obscure great film that you've seen a couple times, or, you know, you've seen a handful of times, whatever, and you know it's good, but you don't ever think of it to go, hey, you need to watch that movie. And that's kind of where I feel about this movie. Like, I feel like this is a really, really good movie. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. I think it's probably easily, you know, top 30, 40 movies I've ever seen, you know, like ever seen. Like, I think it's got that kind of, I really did like it that much. Because most of the shit that comes out these days is fucking bullshit. This is nice to see some people actually try.
But still, top 40 is high.
It's high. It's high. But but here's the thing: is if somebody's like, "Hey, suggest a good movie to me," it's Predestination would never pop up. Is that like, you get what I'm saying? Like, it's a good movie that I'll probably forget about until somebody says again, and I'll go, oh damn, that movie was good.
Well,
you're right.
it might be a movie where it's just like, suggest me a movie that nobody's heard of. I bet you think of this movie now that you've seen it.
I definitely suggest this movie every time I see people on Twitter like I want to watch a really good sci-fi movie that I haven't seen before. I'm like, Predestination, go do it, and they do it, and they're like, thank you.
I thought the movie was fun enough in the adventure of it,
Yeah,
just going scene to scene, figuring it out, piecing it together.
It was a fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah. It's a fun mental puzzle that in the end I think delivers. So I liked it a lot, which is hard to say because there's, like I said, it's been so much shit. So.
Well, it's one of those. It's also one of those movies for me. The reason why it's tough for it to make, say, top 40 for me, is just because it's one of those movies where if you rewatch it, and Addiction, I know you've rewatched it like a few times too, but if I rewatched it, it wouldn't be as good to me as it was the first time.
I feel like, because the first time you see it, you're like blown away by all these revelations.
Exactly.
But rewatching it, like Memento, you notice little bits and pieces and bits of information you didn't notice the first time. So it's like worth it for that regard. And it's still enjoyable. Like the dialogue's really sharp, acting's good, it's shot beautifully, and like it's still got a really killer, like ending and lots of good pieces of action and stuff. But rewatching it, I always like learn new information and like piece different things together that make it more fun for me.
Yeah, I feel like I could watch this again and enjoy it, and just kind of like you said, look for things kind of Arrested Development style. Have like, okay, you watch this story, okay, we get it now.
I mean, I could rewatch it too, but could you rewatch it? Like an all-time great for me is when I can literally watch like 50 to 100 times and still have emotional pull. A lot of these movies that I like, just they have emotional moments that like they don't weather over time. Like I still feel the same way in a lot of the movies that I do cherish. So this one is one of those where it's like, yeah, I'd want, the first time, obviously huge impact. Second time, it's more of like, admiring it, or, maybe like more of an educational type of thing where I'm like looking for all the little things, about it. And maybe that's cool. And same with Memento is the same way. Right. And Memento was also different, by the way, because Memento was like the first of its kind. Right, like
of course,
everybody refers to Memento when they talk about just the sequencing, like
editing and story structure.
Right,
it's like no other movie like it.
Yeah, so everybody admires in Memento. Like it might not be their favorite of all time, but if they talk about movies that had impact on this genre, Memento is always going to be brought up by any buffs.
Yeah, but you don't really think about Memento actively when somebody says, what are some of your favorite movies?
Yeah, it doesn't have an emotional connection to me. It's just like structurally it was beautiful, it was awesome, but those aren't necessarily my favorite movies of all time.
I wanted to point out something that we don't normally talk about in movies, but I think it's important in this movie specifically, is makeup. We have talked about it before in the past, when we've done certain things, but I feel like the makeup, especially this scene right here that we're showing, and this scene too.
Oh, you're talking about the burnt scene? Yeah.
There was a lot of scenes that required some intense, really, really tough makeup, because it's hard to make somebody look like a burn victim. It's hard to make it look like somebody's gone through surgery and has a new face like that. Like I feel like in the movie, it was never like, wow, this is clearly makeup. Like this is clearly, it looks really real, especially the burning, like the top of the head still had like hair and patches and it was all stringy, and it looked like somebody who had been burnt, and I don't know, sometimes it can just look cheesy and kind of shitty, but in this movie it actually looked really good.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even like the new Alien Covenant,
like a scrotum, dude. Spawn. Like
I don't know. The new Alien movies like even looked weird. It's like, I don't know. You could tell like where the CGI was at. It just looked weird.
Who was a burn victim in that one?
It was one of the guys, because it's the acid. One of the guys that gets like grabs.
Oh,
He's
the Mexican and the Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
So that looked a little weird.
Yeah. I think that.
But like in this, I just feel like the makeup was really, really, really good in this movie. Like the outfits, the attention to detail.
Well, it was like
time periods, everything.
Because we weren't supposed to know they're the same person.
Yeah.
So the burning was the most important thing to like shroud the audience's knowledge of what was going to come. So it's good that they got a good makeup artist to do it. So because I didn't piece that together at all until the end, and then I was like, fucking obvious as shit, like, oh, burnt face reconstructed. Also the throat thing when he's trying to talk, Like, so the voice is different, obviously. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so, you know what? I really hated I didn't hate the ending. I hated the ending sequence of shots.
Like she's getting dressed up to go back in time.
Where it's like it's kind of what it's almost like in case montage, you missed it. Yeah, in case you missed it. It's like, okay, like I wish they would have just let us figure it out and go, oh, okay, they're all the same person. But at the end, it's like, this is a timeline of every person zoomed in the timeline. Oh my God. And then at the end, he's like, I miss you dreadfully or something like that. It's like, what? It's like, that was a really weird way to sequence that ending. Like, you didn't have to like hand fist it down our throats. Like, we got the twist. Like most of us, I think 99%.
Some people probably don't, though. I mean,
but I just feel like it's so weird.
It's catering to the slower members of the audience.
I was really like
the people that need a refresher of what they just witnessed.
It's like it grabs you by the hair and like puts your head, like it makes you sniff your own urine. Like, this is what it is. This is it. It's like it really throws it in your face there at the end.
Own urine. So you brought up the burn scene right there. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I saw that scene, you actually get a shot of the face. Like when Ethan Hawke, they show Ethan Hawke actually being the person that gives the violin case to that person. I thought at that moment that was Ethan Hawke. Like, that was supposed to be Ethan Hawke's face. So whenever I looked at the face, I was like, that doesn't really look exactly
I was right there
like
with you.
Ethan Hawke. Okay, like I was wondering if I was the only person, because at that point I was like figured out, okay, that's him. I mean, it's clearly right, the trench coat and everything. But that's not his face, though. That's what. So I was like, that just might not have been good.
I think the first time they showed it was Ethan Hawke, and the second time they had Sarah Snook in makeup.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because they did like a big close up of her like reacting to Ethan Hawke giving her the time travel device. Like, she like looks up and she's burnt. Like, and then in the second part of the end, you could clearly tell it's her. But the first time they showed it, was him. I'm pretty sure they used Ethan Hawke to fool the audience, basically.
That would be lame if they did that. They shouldn't have done that.
I don't know. They were trying to cover the tracks before the audience caught wind of what was going on. I dig it. I'm cool with it.
I think they could just they could have just showed a different angle instead.
I've seen it multiple times. In the beginning, when they show the burning, it's really quick. It happens very fast, and most of it is their hands covering the face, and you don't see the reaction shot. It's just the feet walking up and pushing the device towards them, and then they go back in time.
Yeah, they don't show any faces in the
Also, that's my favorite bit in the fucking movie is the time travel, where just like thunk, they just like appear and the debris around them like blows away and shit. Like, I'm like, it's a really cool, like, super low budget way to show time travel.
Well,
like,
it reminds me of Jumper.
Yes, it reminded me of Jumper too. Yeah, I was gonna say this.
Kind of,
yeah.
It's like, why waste all that CGI on crazy stuff?
It's like, don't show me the fucking wormhole. I don't care. I know. Like, get to the good shit where they're back in time.
I know. Oh, hey, so you know that part where there's a training in Space Corps and they have the helmet on, the VR helmet on, and that girl ends up puking. So how much VR have you guys played? Like,
very little.
Very little. Oh, but decent amount. So which one do you have, Diction? Do you have the Vive?
I've done the Vive, Oculus, and PSVR. I've done all three.
Okay, so because I was doing over my vacation.
The gear one.
Yeah, over my vacation. So I was playing on the Vive, and there's that one game that's basically like a roller coaster game, like, where you have the city and the canyon and things like that. Have you ever done that one? It's almost like a sim. It's not really a game.
It's one where you're just reacting. You're not controlling anything, right?
You're just like taking it. You're just like literally just watching. Like, sure. Yeah, and it's it swings you like a looping starship type of swinging thing. But anyways, that part reminded me of that because I was playing all these games and I was like completely fine, and then they put on that roller coaster game, and I couldn't stand up properly. I couldn't stay on my feet. Like, it was
it's like a one in five, like, people will get motion sickness from games in VR where the game is moving but your body isn't.
Yeah,
it was like flight sims and stuff like that. Like 1 in 5 people, I think, was what they
really
tested.
Yeah, it was.
Will have motion sickness from that.
I had to.
I don't get motion
immediately
sickness
throw the goggles off. I was like, I almost fell down.
Yeah,
like, it was crazy.
I've only done it once, and I actually was with Diction. So
yeah, we're doing that. We're like throwing shit at each other and guns. And
but that's the only time I've done it, because I don't know. I feel like VR is kind of.
That one was room scale though, so we could move around and the body would move with us, so it's a little bit harder to get motion sickness.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, that wasn't like if I was sitting down, it was fine, but standing up, I could not stay standing up. It was like
Yeah.
so bizarre. Yeah. It's like, wow, okay. Because I usually don't have problems with, those rides where it's just purely visual, right? And it just shakes and stuff, and even like roller coaster stuff. I usually don't have a problem with that. But for some reason, man, I couldn't keep my balance at all. And my head was like kind of spinning. So it was really weird.
Yeah,
I've got that issue. Yeah. But
so she would have looked over and laughed at you.
Yes, I would have been puking probably,
She
man.
would have been like, "Look at this loser." He was such a bitch to some people.
She's like a total bully, man.
Yeah, kind of was. God damn. Well, by the way, if there's anybody in the chat, we are taking calls today. Do we have anybody lined up?
I don't think we do. Yeah,
I'm totally fine with that
Yeah.
because my fucking head thinking about all this, it hurts.
It hurts. Okay, why don't we talk about next week then? So for those of you wondering what we're talking about, just like today, we obviously dove into Predestination, but we have to tell you guys what we're doing next week, so it gives you some time to be able to go and watch it, or if it's TV show or if it's movie. But so next week we are doing, kind of going back a few weeks. Oh, I forgot the cams again. Shit. It's gonna be Spider-Man.
I'm not even on cam, so it's cool.
It's Spider-Man, exactly. We're doing Spider-Man, so Homecoming.
Good. Get ready to hear Ellohime shit all over more superhero movies. Basically what it's gonna be. Like, everybody, men, women, and children, step right up. Come see the amazing Ellohime.
You might dig this one a little bit more than other like Marvel movies we've talked about.
I'm not gonna write it out. I'm gonna jump into it.
It's more grounded. It's a lot more grounded.
Have you seen it, Elo? I thought you've seen it already. No.
No, I haven't seen it.
I still haven't seen it. My son's seen it. My kids have seen it.
Still playing somewhere because I saw it when it released. Let me double check.
Well, now that I can get a monthly pass to the movies for $10.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
We didn't even talk about that.
That is fucking cheap. That's ridiculous.
By the way, guys. So they're doing these.
AMC hates that. They hate it so much. They're trying to fight it already.
You know what? AMC can suck a big dick because they have bent us over.
Yeah, exactly.
They have bent us over as moviegoers to the point where they're going, why doesn't anyone go to the movies anymore? Well, maybe it's not only because of the convenience of Netflix, but also because when we leave our house, you try to stick it in our asshole financially.
Yeah.
So
also there are like fucking theaters like the Alamo Drafthouse that provide a much more fun experience with better food and service, and they'll kick people out if they use their phones. I was watching Dunkirk for the second time. Dude right next to me would not get off his fucking phone the entire time.
Oh, that's annoying.
The entire movie. It's like, I kind of want to lean over to him and just be an ass. Like, dude, if you don't like going to the movies, then fucking leave. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, just no, like, Dunkirk is a pretty fucking visceral visual and audio experience. And this dude somehow couldn't give a fuck. Was just sitting there.
Well, the thing with AMC too is that, if people don't pay as much for their tickets, they're probably more likely to buy shit at the concession stand too. So,
their concessions are a joke now. They have this fucking this chicken and waffle sandwich that even in the preview, like pictures that are supposed to make it look delicious, it looks like it's plastic. It looks like something you get at
AMC. There's a chicken and waffle.
Oh, well, the one near me, or the one in Emeryville, is all like fucking trying to revamp. They have a bar now, and they have like what they call what's it called, deluxe popcorn or something, or like.
God, see, that's ridiculous.
It's literally popcorn with Cheeto dust on it. Like, they don't even fucking make bones about it. Jeez, and then the other kind is caramel. Like,
my mom loves that shit.
Dude, caramel's good. I give you.
No, caramel. I like.
I'd pay for popcorn.
No, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, so in order to save AMC and other movie theaters from not making money and stuff, they decided to adapt the Netflix.
Well, the founder of Netflix came out.
Yeah, yes, came out with a movie pass, so you can get it's not IMAX in 3D. They'll have another thing for that eventually, but you can pay $10 and you can go to the movies as much as you want for the month to watch films in regular vision.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a thing.
So basically, if you go twice, it's already worth it.
If you go once.
Oh, if you go once, actually, yeah. Just go once, it's already worth it. And it used to be $30 or $40. So it's
even
not that movie.
If you plan on going every weekend, that's still you're
yeah,
still
yeah.
saving money.
So Movie Pass itself isn't necessarily new. It's just the big news is that they lowered it to $10 a month, which is insanely cheap. So this should help attendance. Like if this thing gets big, and I assume it's going to get big, given that it is from the Netflix guys too. So the marketing should be really, really great for this. It will get people
I feel like
back out to the movie theaters.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt the theaters because they make most of their money from concession, not ticket
That's
sales.
what I thought. Yeah.
So the studios are probably going to have a fucking big ass fight, legal battle over this. I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure.
I don't know, but I like that Netflix guy. He sure knows what I like.
That Netflix guy.
Yeah, that Netflix guy. He's basically a modern day Batman, as far as I'm concerned. He got rid of Blockbuster like we needed. He came in. He gave us movies into our homes. For streaming at the click of a button. He has now warped the AMC experience to be affordable. I mean, this guy is basically a fucking hero.
Like now he's got Shonda Rhimes. Now he's got Shonda Rhimes now too. So now he's got Scandal, and like whatever the next scandal is going to be too. So
Jesus. Well,
crazy.
All right, I got nothing left to say today.
All right, so we can wrap up. Addiction, you want to do some shout outs before we take off?
Hi, I'm Eat My Addiction 1. I'm at twitch.tv/Eat My Addiction 1. I'm probably going to be streaming tonight after I take a nap. That's it.
From eating all those Pop Rocks that he has in his mouth right now.
Yeah. They make me tired.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Ellohime. This is my channel. You guys can follow me at all the things that channel provides, such as Twitter and Facebook and everything. ChanMan, tell us about yourself and where people can find you.
You can find me on everything that ends in ChanManV. So Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. The VODs for this show, as well as the other shows I do for Hearthstone, Overwatch, are all on youtube.com/ChanManV. And you can find this show as well as my other podcasts too, all on iTunes. So you can listen to us on the way to work or when you're working out or whatever it is, just by going or typing spoiler alerts. And I think we're like the 5th or 6th. So if you guys want to leave a rating, it helps out when people, type in spoilers. They can find us because it's going to show up a little bit higher. So,
or you can watch while you emotionally masturbate with yourself.
That's what I'm thinking.
You can listen to us in the background. That's where I'm thinking this audio.
Or while you have sex with your previous self. That's also.
Yeah, if you have sex with your previous self, please put this on in the background.
Put that in the ratings too. Like leave that as a message for the ratings too. That you masturbated to us. That would be A+. That would be A+, guys.
You've masturbated to us. It's different than masturbating emotionally with themselves and listening to us. Now we've got into a whole weird realm. Chan.
All right. I think it's a good way to end, guys. Anyways, for Eat My Addiction, Ellohime, and myself, ChanManV. We'll see you next week.